Hi and welcome to rtcrescue.com. I've already done a video on using a rescue sim interactive simulation program. What I thought I'd do, as with a lot of programs, is people tend to go on these things when they're on the internet, have a quick play, and if they're not really sure what to do or how it works, they sort of give up. So what I'll do is just a quick video here just to show you a scenario and how it can be used to aid your training and some of the new features that have now been added. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the HGV scenario. So what we've got HGV here, and the beauty of this is obviously if you've just been to an incident or you feel you need to revisit any of the areas at the incident that you wanted to discuss for development, or you wanted to just do some sort of theoretical based training on a HGV. Not every day training centres have HGVs available, certainly not one hanging around your yard. So this is really good where we could just put this on big screen, and the idea being is we can talk about how we're going to do things. So if you wanted to look at stabilisation, you know, what we're going to put under the wheels, something suitable. So is it, you know, are we going to use some blocks and wedges? Are we doing both sides of one wheel? Is that good enough? Hopefully you're going to be talking about what sort of blocks we use. Do we use step blocks? Do we use HGV wheel chocks or something else? Which wheels do we chock? You know, do we chock the wheels of a HGV cab, for example? Ideally in this situation you want to think about, do we chock the drive axle as opposed to the front wheels that can twist and move as we're manipulating steering wheels? You can have a look at the different orientations. So again, you can talk about if you want to use some, put in some struts from the sides, where you're going to put your struts, where do you want to take the load, and so on. And it's sort of discussion points about areas we want to sort of implement things. If we're going to do some cutting on the cab, or we're going to put some stability on the cab, where do we want to put the struts? You know, are we going to use ratchets, or we can use sections of ladder to gain access? Yeah, do we need to get up to the front of the cab? Do we want to get a bit of ladder in there? Talk about using that to gain cab access, things like that. One of the beauties and new features now being added, we've got a draw mode. So you could sort of draw on in and say, well, actually, if we need to create space, so we're going to cut along here and along the back, remove this section here, or we're just going to do some cuts and roll the dash forward. We can change colour there. So if we want to say, yeah, we might have to put some rams in there and ram this way to redirect it. Apply some bits and pieces here. Change the colours. If you need to clear it, you can just clear it, start again. You know, if we want to talk about, actually we'll be better off placing some sort of stability here. Can we drop the landing gear down? Would be a better option. So we can draw on here, we can talk about things, different areas of getting access. Do we want to get some access in the side? What do we do in a cab? Do we want to get some blocks underneath here? Excuse my drawing. So you get the gist. If you need to, you can then erase parts, and so on. So the beauty of this tool is it's offering you the ability to talk about scenarios using images and visuals, where we're going to place things. If we've got an underride, so we've got a vehicle underride under here, this section here, you know, where we're going to place our stability tools, our safety zones, things like that. So we're going to come in either side, or do we decide we're just going to put in some blocks and wedges, build up some crib towers, and such. You know, if you've got a bit of cribbing, get you saw on the way, something like that, a bit of additional support, things like that. So we can just use it as a discussion point. So hang on, we've had an HGV, let's look at it, let's discuss it, let's look at the different options available to us, let's draw on it, let's annotate it, and all of this can be sort of reset, removed. You know, if we want to get rid of some struts, you can just click them off, or, you know, even easier, just reset the whole scenario. You know, you can zoom in a bit if you need to, and start afresh, and you can sort of talk about all the different areas you want. Another one we talked about the other day, you know, vehicle on its side. So again, this is where this tool could be really useful. So we're talking about a vehicle on its side. So we might initially get some stabilisation in to get sort of rapid access, or if we need to get rapid access through windscreen because we've got no other options, yeah, we can draw on there. So right, let's talk about its crew. So we're going to cut the whole windscreen out, following the contours, or some people still like to do the J cut for whatever reason. You know, we can draw these things on. Do we take out the rear window first, or do we drop someone down in from the top? Different options again. If you're talking about cutting the roof off, different ways. Are we cutting sort of the A and the C pillars? We cut them high, or we just going to resip straight across here, or we do like a tin where we just open up that section of the roof and remove it here. So just to show you some of the options there that we can use as a brilliant training aid in the classroom. Some of these new features that are available on the program that I think is fantastic. You know, if we can't just chuck a car on its side out in the yard because we haven't got one, or we manual handing all those bits and pieces, we can put it on big screen. We can annotate, we can draw on here, we can just talk about not just stabilisation, but the finer points such as where we're going to cut, where do we cut first. You know, if we're going to go have a look at the underside of the vehicle, so we can sort of put in there where we're looking at putting a stab fast a strut head. So we're placing it here, and then where's our hook hole? Can we push this bit out here? Do we want to avoid these areas like here? You know, if we've got fuel tanks, spare tyres, do we want to have a no-go area so we don't put anything there? If we're talking about hybrid electric vehicles, things like that, is this whole area the battery pack? So do we need to avoid that? So all things we can use, but we can draw on it. I think that's a useful option. You know, so I'm really just trying to show you some of the options that you can use for these different scenarios, now that the draw function's on there, to make it more interactive and useful as a trainer. Again, some of the other scenarios, so if you haven't had a chance to play on this, if you do go for a scenario on training mode, assessment mode for example, so it gives you bits and pieces you need to look at. So if you're thinking, you know, you've had a look at this, you think, oh, I don't get it, what am I supposed to be doing? This is the encouraged discussion now. So we've turned up an incident, this is what we're faced with, what are we going to do? Gives you some hints and tips down here, what you need to be looking for initially. Gives you some basic info about the vehicle on the left here, look. So what we can do, we can get your crash recovery data, any bits and pieces you want to look at about that. We've got a bit of support and information about prioritising our actions, 360s and such, just a bit of additional reading. So we can do a 360. Have a look all the way around. Then we need to inspect. So when you're looking at this, the idea is we're looking. So if identified, right, we've got an oil spill, we need to do something about it. Have we got any access? Nope, doors are shut. So let's locate the fuel filler cap. Okay, so it's a petrol car. So then we've got to look at the damage. Then we get some supporting information down the bottom here about why that damage is relevant. Then we need to have a chat with the casualty. Are they responsive? So again, we get some bit at the bottom here. You can see down here, look, we get some information about the casualty to help us now formulate our plan. So ultimately, we need to get access. Okay, so perhaps before we get access, we might think, actually, do we need to cover up? Do we need to cover up this spill? Yes, we've covered up the spill. Okay, we need to get hands on that casualty. So if we've got glass management tools, we can manage the glasslet. But are we going to walk over that glass to access the casualty? Possibly, you might do, you might not. But at discussion points, let's get some sharps protection down. So now we've covered up those hazards. So you can see how this builds on the discussions and the talking you can have as a team about actually, so what are we going to do next? And here we're able to interact with the program, put things in place, and then, you know, remove things if we need to. Not so much in this mode, but in training mode you can. So at the moment that you can see here, we've carried out 8 of the stages, no hints, no warnings. Then we've got to think, well, actually, we need to get some form of oh, look. So we haven't got any medic hands on, look. So there we go. We've come up with one hint or a warning, some information about what you need to do. So we need to get hands on the casualty, look. So again, depending on what you like, you can have various different bits and pieces of medical information come up here. It's a bit about the GCS classic coma scale. So now we've got hands on the casualty, gives us a little bit of an idea about that situation. Then we can think about, well, let's get some extinguishers off. Oh, we've done the spill, cover up the spill. Okay, so yeah, we might have done it, so there's a few little bits you've got to do in the right order, even though you can do some things. Then we've got to think about getting an extinguisher off, or doing the airbag, sorry. So it's trying to do things in a bit of an order. Not doing too well here, are we? So then, you know, ignition off. Where are we at? Extinguisher off there, look. So now we've got an extinguisher off. Now we can pry the door open. Or open the door, shall I say. Oh, stability. Look, so there we go. It's giving us warning saying we're opening the car. We're starting to do things. We've got access through the window, but we need to stabilise it. So then we can come in, look, we can get stability done. So then all discussion points, if you've got people in development, you start talking to them saying, so what would you do next? This is what we're looking for. Getting some stability in our main key 4 areas. Discuss whether or not you need a 5th point of stability. You know, do we need that? Once we've got the vehicle stabilised, can we pry the door open? Spread the door open, sorry. So the door's jammed shut, we spread it open. You need to get some manual handling on there, open it a little bit further. And then what we then can do, so we've created a load of space there, look. What we can do is chop the door off, I think. So we've cut the door off, so we've got good access now, and all that's required is a casualty to be removed that side of the vehicle. Okay, so a little bit rushed there. You know, a few blips there. Got 8 hints. Look, we've completed the rescue. So very basic scenario. You can then move around the vehicle, have a look at various different bits and pieces, but you get the idea of how it works. Then you've got another more advanced scenario than this, where you cut the roof off. But it's not meant to be as rushed as that. Items come at the top here to show you that you've put them in place. And you've thought about it, but ultimately it encourages discussion and get your crews to work in a methodical way of actually what we need to do first and what needs to happen before the next task. Ultimately, operation would be simultaneous activity, wouldn't it? But I think this is more of a slow time, talk through, interact, put things in place, and you can see you can't progress until you've done bits, and sometimes it can catch you out and think, well, what have we done next? You know, it opens up that discussion, and eventually you will get it. You've just got to have that mind of what would I do at an incident. We appreciate, you know, that there probably is limitations because you might do things slightly differently operationally, but this gives you sort of a basis talking point of the things you probably expect to happen. Right, that's just an intro in a couple of some very basic scenarios there, just to try and start to get people thinking of actually how this tool is beneficial and how it does work. And you've got to give it a bit of time, you've got to get on there, you've got to have a look and a play. And once you get into it and the options you've got, you know, again, you can go in here, sort of, you know, where we're going to cut. Do we cut in there first, cut in there? Where we cutting last? We don't want to cut that. Is there some airbags here? We've got some cylinders there. You know, do we want to mark things? You know, what's this here? We can, you know, and you can draw whatever you want on there. You know, I mean, nothing naughty, obviously, but you can draw whatever you like on there to aid training and pointing things out. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. Thanks for watching. You've been watching rtcrescue.com. See you next time.